goes. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we will be joined by one of our pastors. I'm not sure if he's here already. Just indicate
He is.
Okay, yeah, because we are talking about work and purpose saints. So sometimes you might find that he's busy with work, and now purpose is calling. So we don't know whether what is happening or not. So he is here. We have our very own Pastor Hlohlo, who will be speaking to us tonight. He has a very decorated career in IT audit, and he is also a pastor. More than that, he's also a coach. He has got a number of qualifications which I cannot even mention. He has got a master's, he has got a number of certifications. He will tell us how many qualifications actually he has. He also has a very proud wife who goes around telling people that she's married to a sane husband. So he is a sane husband. So we'll be meeting him here tonight. He also has got children. Ladies and gentlemen, with a huge round of applause and visual welcome, let's welcome together our Pastor Hlohlo.
Yay!
Yeah, no, I'm here, and I wouldn't have missed this for the world. I can promise you.
No, we are quite excited to have you here, Pastor Hlohlo. And yeah, a lot of people know you as Pastor Hlohlo. So now maybe they are quite surprised as well. Why are you talking about careers and everything? But I read about you in a book, Level Up, Chapter 1, and the book is profiling successful people in careers. Maybe just a bit of an introduction in terms of what you do on a daily basis in terms of your career, so that people can also understand that element of you as well.
Yeah, no, good evening, and yeah, to everyone on the call. Thanks for joining us as the church. I mean, as much as I'm a guest on this platform for tonight, I am also the pastor at the CJC, and thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming. So, what do I do on a daily basis? I lead and manage audits during the day. So from 8, I'm a head of IT audit at the South African Reserve Bank. That's what I do. I have a team who goes around the bank evaluating information systems controls, IT controls, just to make sure that the systems are running the way they should. They are properly secure. That there's no malicious individuals out there who would be able to steal our information and do nasty things in our system. So that's basically what I do in simple English. And at 5 o'clock, when I close the laptop, I open another one.
Yeah, which is that laptop that you open when you close?
So, depending on the day, at 5 o'clock, when I close the South African Reserve Bank laptop, I open a coaching business. I am a leadership and an executive coach, so I do coaching for institutions of higher learning and for other individuals who may be interested in what I do. And yeah, then I can close that and then be part of the team that runs the CJC.
Yeah, no, that's quite hectic, eh? So just tell us, how did you stumble into IT audit? Did you always think you were going to be in IT audit?
I mean, strangely enough, you used the correct term. I stumbled into the career. I mean, I matriculated 1993, 1994, packed my bags, headed for the City of Lights to study medicine at the Wits Medical School. So I had always believed that I was meant to be a doctor. Misguided interest though. So I went to vets, spent the first 3 years of my life trying to become a doctor. Ultimately realized that that's not for me. It can never be me. Of course, I mean, the studies did not go that well, but ultimately I stopped medicine, and I had to consider what else would I want to do. I was advised by those who do career guidance to say, look, maybe do a simpler degree related to medicine. Who knows, who could regain your interest. Maybe it's the only reason is that this thing is hard. You know, it's not that you've lost your interest. So do something simpler and you could come back and continue with your medical studies. I did exactly that. Went into science. It was not a smooth path. It's a story for another day. Went into science and majored in advanced biology and medical cell biology. So that's completed the degree in 98 and graduated with a BSc degree in biological sciences. And I knew when that degree was done that I have no interest in going back to studying medicine. I had to then start thinking of the things that I could do. And people were talking about IT and computers. That sparked my interest, and went and studied programming. In those years, we studied COBOL programming. So COBOL is like maybe second generation programming language where you actually write the code, instruct the machine to do what you need it done. It's quite different from how people code in these days. So that's what I studied. I became a programmer, and went from one company to another as a systems developer, until then I got to a professional services firm where I was first introduced to people called IT auditors. They looked a bit more sophisticated than us, who sat in the back benches writing code for data analytics scripts, which is what I was doing at the time. And I was introduced to IT auditors, and I had never in my life heard of a career called IT audit. I had never intended I was going to study until I was introduced to those ladies and gentlemen at ENY at the time, Ernst and Young. And that's how I then got into IT auditing. Fortunately for me at the time, VES was providing a higher diploma in computer auditing, which I then went and did, passed, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, no, that's quite beautiful. One will assume that usually the journey is straightforward from what you study in undergraduate towards your career, but yours seems to show that there is a number of pivots. But let's also now talk about your purpose, um, because we are talking work and purpose. So do you think your purpose is in that, or is your purpose different from IT audit?
When it comes to purpose, absolutely not in IT audit. I mean, I do IT audit because I know how to do it. Am I passionate about it? Not necessarily. My purpose lies elsewhere. I mean, since as a young man, as a teenager, I've always felt that God wanted me to play some role in ministry, and early on it became clear that that role would have something to do with teaching and speaking, because I started then speaking when I was 15, and I've been doing it ever since. Frankly enough, my ministry, took some shape and form when I was struggling with medicine at vets. It was around the same time that the call of God upon my life became quite vivid and tangible. I mean, I had always knew and suspected that that's what God wanted me to do. But around that time, I knew then that that's exactly what God wanted me to do. And maybe that's why the medicine story could not have worked. Because as I look back, like Steve Jobs said, you can never connect the dots going forward. You can only do it in retrospect. Now that I look back and look at the hours that doctors spend in practice, I knew there was no way that I would have been able to do the things that I'm able to do for the CJC and for other ministry organizations as a pastor and as a speaker. So it now makes sense for the last couple of years why that path was never meant for me.
Yeah, and you found your purpose quite early, and we have seen people sort of when they find their purpose, they say, "This is what I'm going to focus on for the rest of my life." Have you ever had thoughts, because you have built a successful career also in IT audit? Have you ever had thoughts earlier on to say, you know what, let me just focus on my calling?
Of course, I mean, I've had those thoughts. Yeah, but generally I would just look at the church and think, the church can't afford me. I'm kidding, but so, so I mean, I've had those thoughts that maybe I should I should go full time, but those thoughts actually intensifies a lot more after you've preached what those who listened to you would consider a powerful sermon. Then they tell you, then they call you. I mean, especially in my early 20s, I've had a lot of people, even elders, adults, come to me after a sermon. Like I always say, that I used to be more famous than I am now as a preacher. I was still famous then. I preached all over the place. And people would tell me that, look, this is what God wants you to do. You are wasting time with all these other things that you are involving yourself in, like a career. You should actually be on a full-time mission to set sinners free from the evil one. And I mean, at some point, I would consider these things. However, I always knew that that's not what God said to me, right? I always knew that I never had God say to me, I needed to stop working and focus on ministry. And at the time, I had no way of knowing. Maybe I did not even know scripture like I do now, having now encountered people, even in the Bible, like Paul, who kept some kind of vocation, even when they were saving their purpose. And increasingly, then I felt much more comfortable that I can hold both spaces without having to drop any of them.
Yeah, and while doing that, um, are there any lessons that you took from your IT audit career that then you also apply in your pastoring and vice versa?
So, okay, let me start with what I would say I learned from my 9 to 5 career that I would apply in ministry. I mean, the stuff I'm involved in is quite structured, right? It's quite structured. Um, it's quite formal. It's deadline driven. Our work is you will start this audit now. You need to finish at a specific time, and therefore that has given some structure to how I do things, whether it has to do with church, or my own life. I mean, sometimes I do lose that bit of a structure, but however, I like things quite structured. That's possibly the key thing that would have come out of my 9 to 5 experience. What is it that has come out of ministry and is flowing into my 9 to 5 career on a regular basis? Basically, the kind of person that I am. I show up as me in all spaces. I show up with kindness. I show up with empathy. I show up with love. I would want to believe that. Maybe if there's anyone on this platform who's worked with me, they they can say at the end if that's correct. But I try and show up as a person that if people were to find out that I'm a pastor, they will say, yes, man, I always thought there was something special about you. Now that you say you are a pastor, it makes perfect sense because you've always been kind to us, you've led us well. You've demonstrated love and empathy even how we would go about our days in normal operation of work. So that's really what I've tried to do, just to make sure that I do not appear as a tyrant at work. And somebody says, "Hey, Vera," they say that guy is a pastor, and they are all shocked. Which one? There's no way that guy has seen the door of a church, let alone being a pastor. So I think I've always managed to show up as a kind, respectful, loving person, even in all those spaces.
Yeah, no, I mean that's an important point that you make because in some spaces you'll find people saying that if this guy goes to heaven, I will surely be there by the right hand side of the Father.
Yes.
And yeah, it just goes to show sometimes the disparity between who we are in our call and what we do in work. So I just want to find out, has there been any instances where you have found your values challenged because of the kind of work that you do?
Yeah, I don't want to go to jail, Mtsundeni. Thing is recorded. I mean,
Yeah, so now
I
we'll
spent
remove this one. We'll remove this one.
I mean, I spent 9 years of my life in local government, and I spent about 3 to 4 years of that 9 years as head of internal audit at the largest city in the country. And as part of that, I was responsible for forensic investigations. And you can imagine just how muddy that space would be in a public sector organization, how it could challenge every bit of who you are fundamentally as a Christian, and as an honest man. So, I mean, of course, I've been challenged many times. I've been invited many times, but at least I can confidently say that I did my best to remain above board, that my name does not appear in ways that will either compromise me, but most importantly, that will bring the name of Christ in disrepute. But those opportunities existed, in many shapes and forms, and I tried my best not to be involved in any of that. But there were opportunities, tempting at times, yeah. But I think I did my best, Mr. Ndo.
Yeah. So now let's talk progression, right? So there's an amount of work or effort that is required for one to grow in whatever they are doing. So and usually growth happens outside of work hours. So how then do you decide when you want to grow or progress career wise, and also some of the growth that then is required when it comes to your own call with regards to ministry, because all of those are competing for the time that you have outside of your normal work hours.
So, I mean, of course, like everybody else, I get given a new set of 24 hours. Midnight, like everybody else, I get a new set of 24 hours that I then need to invest in things that I am willing to contribute in, and in things that I need to learn. Because I mean, the contributions are twice you are learning or you are contributing, right? That's how you invest time. And there are specific seasons in my life that I focus on something. Okay, over the last 3 years, I've built a small leadership and executive coaching practice. As I said, I do work with universities, and therefore that has taken a lot of my time after hours. This year has been special in that part of my life has grown significantly. It has really taken a lot of time, but I'm hoping that, after September, October, things will go back to normal, and I would not have to invest so much of my time in that going forward. Most of you on the call would even know that has taken away from me one of the disciplines I respect a lot, which is our Bible study time between 6 and 7. That this year has been quite hectic. I haven't attended as much as I would want to, because that coaching practice is growing, right? And it's important for my post-retirement significance, right? Because that's the stuff that I will focus on. So I'm investing that time now. Yet it's important for the future. But prior to that, then I would pick a season and focus on studying. Between 2018 and 2020, it was the master's in business and executive coaching, because I needed that, because I knew that's what I would have wanted to do since the day I was introduced to coaching and leadership development, and just supporting leaders in them showing up as leaders and showing up as the best versions of themselves. I always knew that then I would do coach. So I invested a lot of time in that. But one thing that actually never drops for me is the development of my ministry. I try and spend some time reading a book, of course, reading the Bible and preparing sermons. And if those who come to our church, you would possibly you would have seen and experienced that the kind of sermons that I work on requires a lot of time, because I build up a story over weeks or months, the current one being on its second year. But but there's a thing, but that takes time, and as much as it's doing the actual thing, it's also developmental in its nature. It helps me develop that craft and improve what I do and what I offer in that space. I'm still hoping that when all is said and done, I'll probably fit in further studies in ministry or something like that. But I mean, it's something that I'm thinking about, that one day I will probably do it.
Yeah. Let's start also just now integrating some of the questions that are coming from the people, because the people are quite interested. Yeah, I think the issue of balance we have spoken about, to say, does one suffer because of the other, or are you able to keep balance all the time? I think you have addressed that with the previous
Yeah.
question.
Maybe just to make a point.
Yeah.
Sorry, before you continue on that balance thing, I mean, I think the challenge sometimes with balance is the expectation that things will maintain a specific equilibrium all the time. depending on what's going on in your life, sometimes ministry takes all the time, sometimes work takes all the time, sometimes studies take all the time, or most of the time at least. So at certain points, there will be an imbalance. That's just how life is. You just do try and make sure that you don't drop anything completely, right? That you have no time for your wife, that she may look at you and say goodbye. I have no space here. So you make sure that as much as at times something will be a bit more important depending on where your life is, but nothing ever completely drops and therefore gets destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. There's a question coming from Dr. Bree. She says, you found your purpose early. What would you advise someone who is there now in a full-time job or studies, but is hearing the call of God over their life?
Yeah, I finished that degree. Yeah, continue working. Unless if you are hearing God says you must stop, because then there's nothing you can do there. If you are not hearing God saying stop, don't stop. Finish the stuff that you are doing. It could be important for where God is taking you.
You have heard it, Dr. Bree, finish the stuff. And then there's a question coming from Stonda here. Says, you said people would say focus on ministry full time and leave your career, but you knew that's not what God said. What would you advise someone that is at that crossroad daily, but the voice that's louder is what feeds their physical body? It's a similar question, but I think it's just more around if that intensity is growing by the day, how do you handle it?
And if I'm understanding the nuance on that one, is that it could be that you should be going full time, but you are listening a lot more to what are you going to eat? Which is which is possible. But like I said earlier, if you're hearing God speaking to you, I know it's quite tough to decipher God's voice from the noise. But God's voice is in many ways it's peaceful. Sometimes it's quite soft. It's not insisting. It's not violent. More often than not. So just keep praying about it, because that's the only way, really. There's absolutely no science to it. Just keep praying about it, and God will lead you accordingly, and you will find your way. Even in what could look like a messy situation at some point, you will definitely find your way.
And then another question that is coming from the code is, how does one distinguish which papers a dual call, like how you are doing?
I missed a bit of that.
To do full-time ministry, or they've got a dual call like yourself, wherein you can do ministry and still work?
How do you know which one is which?
Yeah, so if you are sensing a call of God upon your life, how do you know if this is the kind of call that is saying to you, go to ministry full time, or you can still do the call while you are working? I think that's the question. Obed, you can feel free also to unmute. We can give you an opportunity just to phrase your question in a way that would make sense.
No, I think Ruti has answered it when he was answering Dr. Bree and Tondan. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And then there is a question that is coming from Hlohlo. Was there a defining moment that made you certain about your calling? How can one remain purpose driven while facing setbacks and failures?
Okay. Was there a moment that I was certain that here was called? I think, like I said, when my struggles were at their peak in 96, 97, when I really struggled with school, and it was the most uncertain part of my life at Vets. That's the time that my ministry flourished like there's no tomorrow. That's when I knew. I mean, as much as it was over a long period of time, but those 2 years said to me, no, you are definitely called. As much as it may have looked like failure on one side, but on one side I knew for a fact that there's something significant that God wants me to do. And how do you sustain a call, when you experience setbacks? If I'm paraphrasing the question correctly, it's exactly that you have a call, you have a purpose. And when you know you have a call and a purpose, they say the man with a why can bear anyhow. If your why is strong enough, there's no event that will make you lose hope, hopeless, discouraged, etc. Because there's something bigger than yourself that you are carrying. Actually, it's a life without a purpose that's easily distractible by outside forces and other things. A life with purpose generally can withstand a lot more.
No, that's quite powerful. And now back to a question more around IT. So how do you keep up with evolving technology while maintaining audit standards? About blockchain, artificial intelligence, all of those. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, of course, the obvious things is we attend conferences and webinars, and God has been good to me. I present a lot in most of those forums. However, actually, earlier this year, I was telling them at work that, guys, to be honest, if anyone comes to me and say AI, no, I'm gonna punch them on the face. I am AI'd out because of just the amount of AI I had been hearing over the last 2 years. So I just, guys, I am AI'd out. Can we talk about something else? I mean, I'm presenting at a conference in the next couple of weeks. Is AI and internal auditing, right? So, yeah, so we attend conferences, and therefore we read, because now that I'm presenting, I have to read up a bit and prepare a presentation on that. So we attend conferences, read, and there are lots of resources, even at work, that seeks to help us with those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another question coming from Nkululeng says, you spent many years in university changing courses until you stumbled at AI. Not AI. You have been speaking about AI. I'm also saying AI. Until you stumbled at IT. That was the question. So during those kind of struggles, what advice would you give to someone who is struggling? Yeah, and then this one is saying at the same university, thinking about quitting and bearing in mind that we normally like to get instant things as a generation.
Yeah. So, I mean, thinking about quitting is an obvious option. really. Not that you'll take the option, but it becomes an obvious option. Actually, I always say many people don't know that the beginning of 1997, I actually quit. I quit university. I went to look for a job, right? And I met one of the guys I knew who was at varsity, who had dropped out, and he was working for a company in Brandfontein that sold AMC pots, right? So we would go and put up a stall at the mall and sell AMC pots. So I sold pots that you needed an installment to pay for them. They were very expensive, those AMC pots. So I left university with an intention to go and do that. So I went. We would then go and sell them. So one day, as I was sitting there, and I thought, so I came from the villages to Johannesburg, and this is the sum total of the whole thing. I'm at a shopping center selling pots, and that's it. And nobody knew that that's what I was doing. That day, I took off my tie because we went there with ties and stuff. I took off the tie, and I went back to Wits University to beg them to take me back and study something else. I mean, I've never begged like I did that year, to say, I will do anything. Just allow me to come back. I'll study whatever it is that simpler degree that was suggested to me. I mean, I went to ask for that degree, I think a week before university started in 1997, because I had spent a couple of weeks quitting university. So it becomes an option, but it shouldn't be an option, quitting. And I mean, I look at that moment all the time when I think about the story of my life, and I thank God that that did not happen. And I don't even think God would have allowed it to yeah.
Yeah, and your wife is saying if you continued with the pots, my brother, you wouldn't be married to me today. Yeah. The question stands, Moruti, where are the pots? If you know the proverbial question, where are the pots? Who
No,
made the pots?
I
Yeah.
did the things that made the pots not to be there. That one I can tell you it was me. I did the things that made the pots not to be there. Otherwise, the pots would be there. It was,
Yeah. So how has being married to another preacher or pastor changed or shaped your ministry?
I mean, it's such a privilege, yeah, Mr. Ndo. It's a privilege to be married to a preacher, but it's a privilege to be married to my wife. Like I possibly could have married any other preacher, but God made sure that I married this one. So it's such a pleasure. I don't have identity anymore, Mr. Ndo. I meet people in places at work, even my colleagues. But yeah, we know you. You are Pastor Mancha's husband. I have my own identity. Why can't you call me by name? I'm also a pastor. I mean, I can't just be Pastor Mancha's husband. So that's what has changed. And my sister, I think I saw her, is on the line. Kathleen's mom, when she got to Rustenburg, she used to complain that she meets a whole lot of people who say, yeah, you are Lethonolo's younger sister. And she used to say, yeah, but a bit, don't I have identity? Now I know exactly how she felt. And I apologize to her if she's still here, that, that people refer to her with me, because that's how my life is now. But it's such a pleasure, and I mean, it makes me want to do better, want to do more, um, just to ensure that the ministry grows. Yeah.
There's a question that is coming from Miles. I saying I manage IT applications at work, and we clash quite a lot with internal audit during audit times regarding findings, and sometimes it gets heated. Did you ever lose it? When such arguments happen.
I lost it this morning, Mayeza. So, no, that happened. That happens a lot. I lost it this morning with one of the leaders within IT. But ultimately, we came back and said, look, can you just go and think about what needs to be done? We'll come back on the 29th and finalize this conversation. So that happens quite often because business dig their heels on their behaviors that sometimes expose the business that they run. And when we try and show them that what you are doing exposes the business to risk, they then dig their heels. So that happens quite often. I always just make sure that I'm not disrespectful, I'm not violent, but I'm firm, and I put my facts across. Yeah.
Mm. And in what ways do your leadership responsibility now at the Reserve Bank intersect with your pastoral role in the church? Is there a way in which the two roles influence or complement each other?
Of course, because in both instances I deal with people. There's a lot of interconnectedness with that, and maybe I've been accused of it by many at work that when you think you are a pastor here you are a manager, and I always try to demonstrate that the two are not mutually exclusive, right? It does not mean if you are a pastor, if you are a pastor in a moment, you are not managing, or if you are managing, you are not pastoring. That's not the case. So, but I think because in both instances you deal with people, just how you treat people always comes up in both instances. Otherwise, in other areas we chase targets. On the other side, we chase souls. So yeah, we are always chasing something.
I love that angle. And someone is saying your leadership and vision have inspired many, and I guess they are referring to also that element of involving the people. And then, what do you wish people would do to help make your vision even greater? What do you wish people will do to help make your vision even greater?
Simple thing. Even at work, at church, just show up. Show up as Nsundeni as the best version of yourself. Show up as Nsundeni with all the tools and the talents that God has endowed you with. At church, at work, just show up as the best version of yourself, because when you do that, you help me look better. And I'm not the kind of leader who will take credit for your work, who will push you down and make sure that people see me. I actually allow people to show up and do the things that they are good at, to an extent that last year a project that I lead at work was given an award as the best team was it for the year or for the month, for the year last year, and I was not even on the list. I mean, I owned the project. I still own it, but I was not even on the list because I had ensured that all the other people who participate in the project, they go to present, they speak on behalf of the project, they lead in that project to such an extent that people forgot me, that I was also part of it. So just show up as the best version of yourself to, bring all of you to the table. In the church will help myself and my wife to build the kind of church that we want to build.
Yeah. And let's just go back to Vets for a bit, because people are quite intrigued by that story. Why is the story of failing and exclusion and difficulties in academics seem like it is always there with the people who are called? Yeah, it's a question that is coming through. Is that a pattern?
I don't know if it's a pattern elsewhere, but one thing that I had picked up because I had the privilege of being part of Christian Action Fellowship from the 90s until now. And 9 out of 10 times, for an example, or most of the guys and ladies who chaired CAF, who were the CAF chairpersons, struggled with the academics. I have no idea why. Is it the fact that because of the amount of work that you have to do, you sometimes forget your studies, or is it a spiritual attack? I am more inclined to go with the latter. That, guys, we need to cover those people with prayer, because the devil is fighting them tooth and nail. Because if you were to ask anyone who've been part of CAF adverts, they'll tell you that that was the experience, with the guys who then went on to chair the organization. And the two former chairs
Okay.
are on call. Yeah. The other one is very good.
We hope they have a different story, but yeah, we will hear from them as well. So there is a question now. What's the one question that you wish people would ask you about balancing IT audit and pastoring, but they rarely do? And today we have also been asking questions, but that question is not coming. But it's a very important question.
What's the relationship between the two, call it careers for now? Yeah.
And can you try to answer it?
Yeah. How many minutes do I have?
No, you can try to answer it in a minute or two.
Okay. No, I wanted to answer it with a presentation, but it's fine. The other one funds the other. That's the relationship. The other one funds the other. So, for example, I believe in a concept that we've discussed on this platform a couple of years ago called Ikigai, which is really about living your life at its sweetest spot, right? That you find one thing that ticks all the boxes, as it were, and that one thing that's a combination of your passion, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what the world is willing to pay you for. That if it's one thing, you are possibly in the minority, but we keep trying to find what that is. But you find that mostly with soccer stars and musicians, that they do one thing. So if you are Cristiano Ronaldo, the world wants to pay you for football. You are good at football. You love football, and the world needs your football. It's in one thing. But if you are me, chances are you could find that in one or two or three other activities, right? And you find you want to be a pastor, but the world does not want to pay you for pastoring. I'm talking about honest pastors who are not trying to steal anything. The world does not want to pay you for pastoring. So you need to find something that maybe you are good at, that the world wants to pay you for, that you can then go and do, so that you do pastoring for passion and you're not trying to make money from it. It could be in anything. So the relationship between the two is exactly that one can actually push you in the direction of the other because of the other things that you can do because of it, right? The chances are, if I was at home hungry and I didn't have a job, I would struggle to do the work that I do in my purpose. So they may not be related in terms of functions, but in terms of the person that I am, they are actually related. They are joined at the hip. I need both of them because I can do the other, I can then do the other.
Yeah, no, that's quite powerful, and I think it sort of summarizes what we have been discussing about today. There is a comment coming from Commander saying the pattern of struggle is common. I would like to thank Pastor Fiofio for his assistance. I was almost excluded at VET second year, but Mfundisi helped me. Yeah, so thank you so much. He says he will never forget. Thank you, Mfundisi. Yeah, so we are quite. Yes, you can go ahead.
I was saying I even forgot, but now I remember.
Yeah, no, we are quite glad that people are impacted by the work that you are doing, and you continue to inspire us every day. There are some questions that are missing, but hopefully then other people can then continue to ask you these questions outside, because we are now running out of time. But maybe just two questions to close off. So, firstly, how can young professionals integrate their faith into their work without being preachy or out of place? Let's start with that question first.
So, I mean, with that one, there's a saying that I'll probably murder, but it goes something like, every day when you wake up, you must go out there to preach the gospel. And when it becomes necessary, you can speak about it, right? Which simply means the best sermon you have is how you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself, the kind of life that you live. And if that's enough, you will have a lot of questions of people who want to know, why are you that different from them? You then get an opportunity to tell them about Christ. That does not mean you must walk into board meetings with 1 Timothy chapter 3 all the time, or that won't be necessary if you carry yourself like somebody who've met Christ. It's not going to be necessary to walk into every session saying, let's pray first. Not that you shouldn't say, let's pray. I'm just saying that you make it easier for yourself if your life reflects what you claim to believe.
No, that's quite profound, Moroti. And yeah, with that, firstly, how can you summarize, or your parting shots in terms of what does it mean to live a life of purpose, and how does work fit into that? How does work and purpose relate to each other?
So, look, I mean, we are all on a journey. We are all on a journey to find that one thing that makes our hearts pump Danone. That's one thing that makes our heart dance. That's one thing that makes our heart excited. If you haven't found it as yet, the journey is as much important as the destination. So don't just look at purpose as a destination, like I have now found it. But the fact that you are searching, the fact that you are not just sleeping, but you are pursuing something, you are trying things. It's your contribution to society. Keep doing it, right? And at the same time, there are things that we do because they are necessary to be done. Are necessary to be done because society needs it, because you are good at them. Keep doing those things, and one day you will realize how your entire life connects, and why is all aspects of it, all the entirety of the person that you are. Purpose and work are never supposed to be mutually exclusive. You can't say I'm a pastor and therefore I can't work, or I work and therefore I can't be a pastor. But both of them, in many respects, are important to pursue, and pursue them vigorously at the same time. Not a problem at all. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Ntsundeni and the CDC team.